You'll make more money once you realize failure is just the entry price to eventual success. Respect is earned, not given. I wasn't deserving of respect, and if you're not getting respect right now, it might be because you need to have a little bit more dangerous of a demeanor. Sometimes a chip on your shoulder is worth more than a pat on the back. Stay cool on the surface, baby. Paddle like hell. Never apologize for trying really, really hard. Having a job is hard. Having a business is hard. Choose your heart. That thing in front of you at this moment that you think is going to break you might actually be the thing that is going to catapult you to the next level of the game. Welcome back to the Big Deal podcast. I'm Codie Sanchez. I want to talk to you vulnerably today about all the ways I've lost, the lessons I've learned in it, so you can get more comfortable with the truth and thus win more. If you're not failing enough and big enough, you'll never really win. So without further ado, welcome to the official Codie Sanchez Lowlight Reel, where I can teach you all the lessons and you can skip my scars. If you didn't get into the school that you wanted to get into, don't worry, I was the exact same way. In fact, I applied to all the big names, the Harvards, the Stanfords, the Yales. And shocking, I got into none of them. In fact, I barely got into Arizona State University, Harvard of the West, some might say. I think the only reason that didn't cripple me at that time was I had no money to go anywhere else. And so I went to Arizona State, and that actually ended up being the biggest win that I ever could have. What do you mean by that? Well, 60,000 students meant that I had to navigate not being that important, being a number. Nobody cared about me. Nobody was checking up on me. I wasn't special at all. And that meant that I worked really hard. I had 3 degrees by the end of it. I got a grant from the Howard Buffett Foundation, because when you're not special, but you have a chip on your shoulder, you have the opportunity to prove everybody wrong. And sometimes a chip on your shoulder is worth more than a pat on the back. So then, you might think, well, maybe it gets better afterwards. And once you're done with college, you're going to figure it out. Everything's going to be fine. Well, if you're like me, I had no jobs, you guys. Senior year of college, I had no jobs. I was too busy partying, doing things I shouldn't have been doing, going to frat and sorority things. And the only people that wanted to hire me were like the Associated Press for $18,000, which even back then was not enough money. And I was pretty scared. I thought I was going to have to move back in with mom and dad. I was super embarrassed. But maybe that thing that is your biggest fear leads you to do the irrational thing you would not have done otherwise. If I had an easy job come across my plate, maybe I wouldn't have pushed myself to do the irrational thing, which is I went to a finance conference. I sat next to a woman. She ended up being a recruiter for one of the biggest companies in finance in the world. It's called Vanguard. And I just got curious. Your willingness to ask questions and look stupid while everybody else tries to position themselves, especially when you're young, is what's going to make you stand out. The older you get, the more you realize you don't really know anything. And the younger you are, and the more you try to look like you know everything, the more foolish you actually look. So I sat next to her and was like, I don't understand anything. What do you guys do? How does that work? How does this go? What happened? She gave me a job offer. That job offer made like 3x more than my 18K, which was a lot at the time. And every single other person in this program, it's called an accelerated development program, every single other person in it, they went to the Harvards, the Stanfords, the Yale. I was the only public school little kid nerd who was also a sorority girl in it. And if you've ever seen how like ducks look really calm on the surface, but they're paddling like crazy underneath it, that was me. So if that is you right now, that's okay. Stay cool on the surface, baby. Paddle like hell. Never apologize for trying really, really hard. That's what I certainly did. And I thought maybe I'd made it at Vanguard. But then what's going to happen is you're going to feel like this climb that you're on, every single time you hit to the top, you hit the first peak, there's a big cliff on the other side. There's a ravine you have to go back down. My ravine was, at the end of that year process, you had to find your own job inside of Vanguard. And so they didn't just like give you another job after you went through the program. Somebody had to choose you inside of the company to come stay and work in their division. And I came up with an idea for the company. I brought it to the head of my division. The guy's like, cool, this seems like a cool idea. And then what happened? Well, he pulls me back in a couple hours later. I think I'm getting this job. He's like, we've cleared it. This is going to be awesome. You're going to go do this thing that you really want to do at our other campus. I'm like, great. He pulls me back in and he sits me down. I'm all excited. I've called my parents. I've told them already, like, what if I have to move to this new place, do this thing? And he goes, what do you think your colleagues think about you? And I was like, what? I thought we were talking about this job that I came up with and this cool thing that I could do. It's like, what do you think they think about you? I'm like, Ron, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, can you explain to me? And he goes, well, your colleagues think that you would leave dead bodies behind you to get ahead. I was like, Jesus Christ. I'm like, metaphorically, physically. I was like 110 pounds soaking wet back then. And I'm trying not to cry, candidly, because I don't know what to say to that. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're talking about. And he basically said, well, you never come to the group lunches, you never plan group activities. Apparently when people come to your desk, you're like too busy to talk to them. They think that you're too good for them. Little did he know that the reason why I was doing all those things was because I was drowning. Like there were all these smart people who had finance degrees. I was like a journalism background trying to figure out how to keep up with Harvard and Stanford and Yale. And so, yeah, I wasn't like party planning because I was dying on the inside. So at the end, he said, so that job that you want to have, we're actually going to give it to this other person. And I remember going home and I was crying. I was super embarrassed. I didn't want to tell my parents because I had like proactively told them I was going to do this whole thing. But what's fascinating about that is if you flash forward 7 years, that same person who took that job from me, who's awesome and a friend now, she became my COO at another company. She worked for me. And so thankfully, the fact that they had been like, no, because you're not nice enough, you don't smile enough, you don't party plan, Cody, we're not going to give you this job. I was like, fuck you guys, I'm out then. Okay, fine. Not even like a couple weeks later, a recruiter calls me for the best company in the world in finance and investing at the time. It's called Goldman Sachs. And when I tell you that like normal kids like me didn't work at Goldman Sachs, like you don't have like a dad who didn't go to college and a mom who was a special education teacher and go to Arizona State and go work at Goldman Sachs. Like that just does not happen. So when the recruiter called me about this, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna take this call. And I had such a big chip on my shoulder that I went ham through the interview process. I did everything you could humanly imagine. And I ended up making 3x my salary again. And that took me to Chicago and New York for one of the best investment banking firms in the world. What I learned from my mentor at Goldman Sachs that helped me get the next job was that no matter what you do, if you do one thing right, which is control what gets into your brain, control the inputs and what you consume, that leads to your outputs, aka how you succeed. And since I learned that, I've been obsessed with making sure I only listen to things that feed me. Things like this podcast. So if you're not already subscribed, this is your moment to do it, to steal all of my rich mentors' homework, like my mentor from Goldman Sachs, and make sure that you're not filling your brain with things that aren't going to give you the success you want in life. And so if you aren't already subscribed, if you're not already following us, if you're part of the 60% of humans that never achieve what they want to achieve fully, I would change that. And I would subscribe to the podcast. The lesson is when you can get around people who are smarter than you, do it every chance you get, especially when it makes you uncomfortable. You become what you surround yourself with. So if you surround yourself with a bunch of people who aren't winning, who don't make any money, who aren't happy, who aren't married, who aren't having sex, guess what you ain't doing? None of those things. So thankfully, I went to Goldman Sachs, and again, it was this group of people who lived in worlds I've never understood. That was the first time I heard the term, we summer somewhere. I was like, we summer? I was like, I think everybody summers. There's like a summer and it's a fall. This is like a thing. What are you talking about? Then I heard all these fancy words, and people live, lives where they went to international schools. I didn't leave the country except to go to Mexico, probably when my parents didn't know it, until I was well out of college. I start working in Goldman. I climb my way up the ladder, and I'm the little duck paddling underwater like a crazy person. And what I learned there is half the time it's not what you know. It's not how you're doing. It's who you know, and even more, who knows you. I was working like crazy. And when I went to go to get promotion from kind of the miserable job that it is when you become an analyst, that's the low guy on the totem pole at Goldman Sachs, to trying to get to the next level of the game, it was like rejected, rejected, rejected. And I remember all these people getting ahead of me, and they were really good at a thing you should never feel bad for doing, which is self-promotion if you are good for real things you did. And I remember being pretty jealous at that time about a bunch of other people. And I was like, man, maybe it's me, maybe it's not everybody else. But thankfully, that led me to do some pretty crazy things. I ended up not asking my boss for permission and going to another boss in another division in another part of the company and saying, I want to come work here. I want to come work there. When I kept getting turned down, I kept going. Finally, one of them says yes to me. I'm like, sick. My boss sucks, but this person sees I'm great. And my boss shuts it down. He's like, I don't care that other person wants you. Again, I'm going to fill it with somebody else. I was like, son of a gun, I'm really doing something wrong here. So what happened? I leave. But where do I go? I'm like, well, this time I am apparently relatively unemployable. And so if you are also unemployable, just know that most entrepreneurs, the reason for your success will be a bad former boss. And so it's okay if you're semi-unemployable, if you don't like the people that you've worked with before. Have a little introspection to make sure if everybody's an asshole, what do we know? You probably are. So I'm sure I was in many ways back then. But then I went to State Street. And the way I went to State Street was different. This time I was like, okay, I want to be a boss. Not the boss, but a boss. I want to manage people. I want to lead a team. And I want to see if I'm any good at this. And are they bad or am I like unleadable? And so I wasn't really qualified for that at the time. And the best way to get something you are unqualified for is to show, don't tell, is to do proof of work, not proof of resume. And so what did I do? I went out to State Street. I looked at all these jobs they had outstanding. There was one that I thought I could do, which was in Latin America. And I put together an entire business plan. Here's how I would run this division. Here's the client list I would go after. Here's the scripts I would use. Here's the product I would sell. Here's the people I would hire for my team. Here was my budget. I just put together, I did all the work. And I still didn't get the job. And then I did it 3 different times for 3 different people and 3 different roles at State Street until I swear to God, one of the guys finally called me and he goes, "Are you this Codie Sanchez girl that is calling all of us?" And I said, "Yeah." I go, "Can you imagine what I'm going to do for you when I do this when I don't get paid? What do you think I'm going to do for you when I do get paid?" And he was honestly worn down, like a sad dad, after the kids just beating him up. And I was like, okay, cool, let's do this. He gives me a job. That job was pretty incredible because that was the first time I got to run my own little team. I got to have people report into me. But if you think I was good at it at first, you're out of your mind. I remember the first time I had to fire somebody, which was my first employee too, whose name was Ryan. Sorry, Ryan. And Ryan was straight up Bostonian. I lived in Boston at the time. And I remember nobody respected me. Respect is earned, not given. I wasn't deserving of respect. And if you're not getting respect right now, it might be because you need to have a little bit more dangerous of a demeanor. It might be because you're not that impactful of an enemy, so you can't be a very good ally. And that was me. I wasn't really dangerous on either side of the coin. And so Ryan respected me about as little as a human could. And I remember one day we're at an event and he looks at me and I'm his boss. And he's like, "You got any tattoos?" And he's Bostonian, so he has an accent. And I, at the time, did not. And I'm like, "I do not, Ryan." And he's like, "I got one." I'm like, "That's cool. I'm excited for you." And he's like, "You want to know what it is?" I'm like, "I feel like you're going to tell me." And he responds, "It's a squirrel reaching right up towards my..." And I was like, "Ryan, what the did you just, he goes, my nutsack. You get it?" I was like, "I do. I in fact do get it." Then he proceeds to ask me if I slept with anybody to get this job. And at that point, I'm like, we are backsliding here. This is not working out very well. He also proceeds to not come in with these elaborate stories about why I'm getting in trouble because I got this liability on my hands. And it took me having the balls to do a thing that's not very well lauded on the internet, which is tell somebody they're not a fit for your company. If you want to get hated quickly, go tell somebody that was hard for you to fire somebody on the internet. It doesn't go over very well. But the truth of the matter is, if you want to make crazy amounts of money, you're going to have to do something irrationally difficult. Your bank account is a reflection of the difficult decisions that you've made and the difficult conversations that you've had. The more difficult conversations you have, the higher the bank account you will eventually have. So that was my first little lesson. I was like, all right, now I got to figure out how to get somebody here who would actually, who I could be worthy of their respect. And I got to live up to that. So then I'm looking to leave State Street, Boston's amazing place. What up, Bostonians? Tell me if I got any of you guys who listen. But it's cold as fuck. And I'm from Arizona. And so I was so cold. I had lived in New York and Chicago and Boston. Also highly recommend, if you stay in the place that you were born, it is really hard to change the human who you were. Move often. See who you are. You can always go back, but at some point it's hard to leave. So see what it's like when you uproot your tree. So I was ready to leave Boston because I'm a wuss and it was too cold. And I'm looking for my next role. And so I want to switch into a different part of finance. And for you guys, I don't know if you've ever Like, you want to get to this next level, but like you can't see the bridge between the two. It's too far. Like, you're like, how do I get this ladder from where I am to what I want to be? What I want to be is like not reasonable for where I'm at, but I want to get there. And that was me. And that's when I really wanted to break into private equity. And so there's one firm at the time that was doing it really well. They're called Credit Suisse. They're not around as much anymore. But I wanted to work at Credit Suisse, and I wanted to run this division there like I was at State Street. And I had to interview in 3 continents with 12 different people. I had to pay and fly myself out to those locations to get the job. I still remember the way the guy laughed at me when I told him that I went to Arizona State. He thought it was a joke. He was like, because I made the Harvard of the West joke. He goes, oh, you did go to Harvard? I'm like, no, bro, I did go to Arizona State. Yeah. I got 3 degrees. He goes, do all of them combined equal a real one? I was like, this is going well. I think he likes me. I think we're probably going to get hired. Shocking, I don't get the job at Credit Suisse. And I'm actually kind of ticked because at that point, I was really qualified. Like, I already had the client list. I spoke multiple languages, English and Spanish. I knew the territory. I was already covering it. And they hire this other person. And I'm like devastated. But inside of the thing that I wanted more than anything else was that line from the Garth Brooks song, which is sometimes you should thank God for unanswered prayers. Because what that led to was me building my very first $1 billion in assets under management business in Latin America. I could have gone and been somebody else's employee, or I could have built my own company. And the reason why, again, a chip on a shoulder so big, it feels bigger than any back pat. So I go to a company called First Trust, which is awesome. And I'm loving it, and I'm building like crazy. And then I get divorced. And I'm like, everything's going so good. Total destruction of my life. Lose all my friends. Lose my house. Lose a bunch of money. Feel awful. I'm so embarrassed. We work together at the same firm. That was a real blast. I'm like the only female, not to play the woman card, but it is true. I'm the only female that runs a division there, and all the rest are dudes. So who do you think they like more? Spoiler, not this one. So anyway, they all side with him. I'm still there. It's a total nightmare. And yet I have built this big, huge business where like nothing had been built before. So I was like, you're gonna have to pry this out of my cold, dead fingers. I was like, what do I do? Now I have to like walk away from this huge thing that I built, or I have to like see him every day and kind of get these comments. And I remember like one of them in particular, one of the MDs, I will show it to you. We'll put you, if you see this in the YouTube video, I'll put it up there. I keep it to this day. One of the other, kind of directors like I was, sent me an email real late at night one night. And it just said, you are dumbing down the firm. I'm glad you're happy, but you're ruining the mission that we're on. Something to that effect. You can see the exact words here. You're dumbing down the firm. That's the part that I remember more than anything else. And I remember thinking, motherfucker, like, I'm too tired for this. Like, I'm tired. I'm beat up. It hurts. My heart hurts. I just feel like I'm getting kind of attacked on all sides. And I'm like, I'm just going to give it up. I'm going to leave. And I talked to a couple other people at the firm. They're like, you're crazy. You can't leave. You built this all up. Like, you already lost all this other stuff. You're going to lose this too. So instead, I start dabbling in my side hustles, my little side hobbies. And like, they start growing. And I start that's just when I start buying companies. If you know anything about what I do online now, I started buying up these little companies. And I realized whoa, thank God I didn't buy these while I was married, because that motherfucker would own part of them. So I was like, that's sick. Okay, now I got these side things that are actually making me a ton of money. That helped because, I'm expensive. And so I was like, I can't leave this firm and not have any money, and I don't want to live on my couch, and I like nice things. And I think they lie to you guys when they say that you have to live on your couch in order to have success. I do not think you have to do that. I think you have to do very hard things, but I don't think you have to go to the point of bankruptcy and breaking and all of that in order to win. And so these things start like making some money. I'm like, this is cool. What a win. If I hadn't gotten divorced, if him and I hadn't gone through that, if all those people at the firm weren't really mean to me, I wouldn't have tried to like get a little safety raft going. Then of course, what happens? I start getting a little notoriety. Like, they're covering Codie Sanchez doing this in Latin America. I'm on a magazine cover. That's cool. Well, the CEO comes to me and says, I want to take a walk, which, spoiler, you guys, not a great sign ever. So I'm like, oh God, I'm fired. And He takes me on a walk and he basically says, at this company, we get rich quietly, Cody. And I thought, why can't we get rich together? Why can't we all talk about what we're doing? I totally disagreed with him. He's like, well, listen, I got a boat and on this boat, we're rowing left. And if you want to row right, you got to get your own boat, but you can't stay on mine. And now as a CEO, I understand it. Back then I was like, who do you think you are? But I get it. He's right. Those weren't my chips. That wasn't my boat. He has every right to go the direction that he wants. So I had to leave the company. I basically got pushed out. But you know what that led to? I went to another company. I raised $100 million for that company. And we had a huge fund in an industry that historically didn't. I got 3 new partners. I was no longer a director, which is like a level here. I was a partner, baby. I was like in the game. I was a player. And that was awesome. And we had one fund and it had incredible returns. And then we have another fund and it's doing great. And I think I'm kind of like on high, right? And at each stage of these, you guys, my network stacking up, stacking up, stacking up, goes down a little bit, goes back up higher, goes down a little bit, but even higher. And then at this stage, I do a thing that I really hope you do consistently, which is I tell them, I think we need to take money off the table. We're winning. We're like winning big. And if you learn one thing about money, it should be save some for when it stops shining. You need to have a little cash for a rainy day. And so I was like, man, guys, we're doing so well. We're crushing it. I don't think this is sustainable. I think we better put some cash on the side and move it over. And I remember I was the youngest of the 3. There were 2 ladies at the time, but I was the youngest by far. And they were like, you're out of your mind. Like, this is going to the moon. We're going to crush it. Don't keep talking. We have more experience. We've seen this before. And I push and I push and I push, and they wouldn't listen to me. And so I was pretty upset and I let that be known. And I thought I was right. And then one of my employees calls me and he's, what's up, LJ? If you hear this, LJ's the man. And LJ calls me and he's like, hey, I think they're going to fire you. I was like, they can't fire me. I own part of this place. What do you mean fire me? He's like, they're like digging up, trying to find something on you so that they can push you out because you think that we should do X and you're really pushing for that investment committee. They don't think your vision's aligned with theirs. I'm like, well, first of all, a truth that I've come to agree with, which is when you have something hard to say it to somebody's face. No matter what, you will have more respect for not going around somebody else's back and instead having the cojones, as we would say in Spanish, to say it straight up. So I thanked LJ and then I got invited to a dinner with one of the partners. Now, I'm not very scary. You can see me. But my husband is scary. He is a former Navy SEAL. And not only does he have the scariest of Navy SEAL resting bitch faces, he is also jacked and a pretty big dude and also knows a lot about weapons, like an odd amount about weapons. And everybody knew that at my firm. But I knew the guy that was going to try to pull this one over on me, where he was going to try to sort of strong arm me out of the company at this dinner and try to tell me he kind of thought he could intimidate me, I think, which, to be fair, you guys, throughout your entire life, there will be people that try to use their intimidation, their aggression, their whatever to make you feel less than. And when that happens, you have to figure out, is this a moment that I hold a wall or am I made of paper? And those moments where you stand up and you realize that you are not made of paper, they're the moments where life really changes. I remember shaking on the way to this dinner. It was actually here in Austin at a hotel, and Chris came with me. And so I was like, here's my plan. He thinks I'm going to come to dinner, just me and him. And he's going to try to, like he usually does, either yell at me or intimidate me or blackmail me. I don't know what's going to happen. And you're going to come, Chris. And you're not going to say anything, except you're just going to sit there and look scary. And then if he doesn't let me talk, like he sometimes doesn't let me talk, you're just going to put your hand on his shoulder and you're going to say, I'm going to need you to let my wife speak. And he's going to be scared. And when I tell you the joy of my life that happened to you guys, when we get to this hotel, we go to stand in there. This gent, who I won't say his name, sees me. I see his eyes flare because he sees Chris too. And then he comes up, oh, hi, hugs, hugs, hugs. And then goes, you know what? I gotta go to the bathroom really quickly. And I peek around the corner and I watch as he gets on the phone. I'm sure to call the other partners and go, oh no, Codie's husband's here. I don't know if this is going to go exactly the way we want to. I don't know if I'm going to be able to strong arm her. I don't know what they actually said. Anyway, we come back out and I lay it on the table. And I'm like, he starts talking about something. And I'm like, my mom has a great line. She says, 99.9% of the time, when I ask you a question, I already know the answer. You have the ability to tell me a truth or a lie here. Your choice. And his face was like, what? And so then I told him, I know that you're trying to push me out of the company. Don't ask me how I know it. I know. I know you're trying to dig up something to make me look like the bad guy. And it's not going to happen. So you have two options. One, you get out of the way and you resign. Or two, you give me a buyout option. But there's no three. So it's one or two. And he's like, well, you can't force that. And I said, I think my attorney can. And so we can choose. That non-paper wall led me to the very first time, you guys, maybe past any point that normal entrepreneurs do it, doing something completely on my own. For 15 years, I had worked for other people. I'd worked with other people. I had done stuff with other people in finance, and I didn't really love the people in finance. And this was the first time that big, scary moment where I almost got pushed out, where he tried to blindside me, turned into me putting up a not paper wall. And if you think it all gets better, the second that you have your own business, I'm going to let you in to a surprise. Having a job is hard. Having a business is hard. Choose your heart. Having a partner is hard. Not having a partner is hard. Choose your hard. Everything is hard. So even though I started then my own company and built that company profitably and grew it a ton and had more success than I'd ever had in my entire life and more freedom than I'd ever had in my entire life, I also had more pain than I'd ever had in my entire life. At one point, I had a partner who wanted to stop working, but wanted to keep part of my main company. The only way that I could get him to stop is I had to pay him $1 million. I had to go through lawsuits and back and forth and gnarly letters until finally I said, I will pay you $1 million to just leave. Just like stop working because you're just in the way of everything. Just get out of here and here's $1 million. So that was my first probably $1 million payout. And so it doesn't get easier as you get bigger, but you do start to build up this armor of no's and can'ts and shoulds until eventually it almost stops bothering you. Eventually, you won't get bothered by the things that bother you today. Like there's some magic that happens the more you get in entrepreneurship. It's like lifting in the gym. In the beginning, maybe 5 pounds, kind of a lot. Then it's 10, then it's 15, then it's 20. Then at some point you cannot even reconcile that 5 pounds used to be enough because you keep having gains and gains and gains. And it is the same thing in the game of success, money, life, and business. The more difficulty you have, the more burden you can carry. I don't ever think it gets easier. You just get better. And so you shouldn't ask for an easier path. You should ask for the ability to shoulder more. Those are what my prayers sound like. It doesn't sound like give me all this money, make it easier for me. It usually sounds like give me the strength and confidence to believe that this is possible for me. Give me the ability to do this task or to learn more intelligently until I can. Please don't give me problems and tasks that I cannot handle right now, but give me the ability to learn how to handle the ones that I do have. And then like at some point, in your life, you will have a moment in which you think you will lose everything you have built. You know, when you're young, you actually don't have much to lose. You have something called ego risk that you could lose, reputational risk that you could lose. But you don't actually have a mortgage and kids and finances and overhead at your company. You don't have all this big, huge risk that's hard to understand when you're young. But eventually you will. I've never met an entrepreneur that hasn't had a moment that almost broke them. And usually the joke when I tell that story is somebody in the crowd will go, only one? Because you're going to have many moments like that. And this was one such moment where I had built the company, I was doing all the things, but I had another member of my company running some of the finances. That person was either inept, incompetent, or fraudulent. And I didn't realize it, but we were a few weeks away from being completely out of money. I am talking about employees that I couldn't pay. I am talking about having to shut it down. I'm talking about complete and utter loss and so much fear about what that would look like, especially when you wrap up your identity into what you were, a business owner, a CEO, or whatever. And I was so scared for that to happen. And I remember, I've told this story before, but I remember talking to my dad at that point and saying, what do you do when you don't know where to go, you don't know what to do, you don't know who to talk to next. And he calls that your head in the hands moment, when you're sitting alone on the couch in the dark with no idea what to do next. And he said, you're not in the game if you haven't had that moment. You're not in the game of success if you haven't felt completely lost, if you haven't felt like you were going to lose it all, if you haven't been completely mortified at the idea that you might not make it. If you have, then you're in the game, baby. But if you haven't, then you aren't taking big enough risks. That one little risk, I think without it, all of the companies I have today, all of the opportunity would have never been there, because you cannot have financial success with multiple zeros if you have no system of oversight to make it. Almost losing everything built the foundation to make sure I never do that again. Almost losing everything meant that I understood how to run a real company, not how to have hope, luck, and a prayer. So that thing in front of you at this moment that you think is going to break you might actually be the thing that is going to catapult you to the next level of the game. There's a quote that I love by Austin Butler, and I want to play it for you here.
I was at a party once and I was dancing and they said, embarrassment is an underexplored emotion. Go out there and make a fool of yourself. Go for it. Like, feel that feeling, the fear of cringe.
That's
and
really
go
good.
out there and do it.
The truth of the matter is, you shouldn't be scared about failing. You should be scared about looking back at yourself 10 years from now and thinking, I haven't changed at all. Take the big leap, do the thing, because the only real failure is never actually trying. And it's not just me that says this about failure. Listen to Kobe Bryant, the man himself.
If you fail on Monday, the only way it's a failure on Monday is if you decide to not progress from that, right? So to me, that's why failure is not existent. Because, if I fail today, okay, I'm going to learn something from that failure and I'm going to try again on Tuesday.
What I love about that quote is he's right. He does it for the love of the game, not the win or loss of the game.
Around money, in your career, in your business, how you make decisions based on your relationship with it. And when people can start to reflect, I give a ton of exercises in the book on reflecting on your money story to see why you have this money personality style now and to see what your personal relationship with money is, just to assess and see, is this serving me in my life? Is it bringing me more joy or more pain? Yeah. And that's it. This is not about how to be a mega millionaire or billionaire, because that's the key to life. Yeah. This is about, can you live a rich, abundant life inside of you? When you do, it really doesn't matter how much money you do or don't have. It doesn't matter if you have $1 million or 20 million. It's like, you feel good with you, no matter what externally is happening. Then the money is just an additional bonus. It's like, wow, I can do cool things with this. I can help more people. I can give more. I can buy a home. I can do stuff. But you're not living your life based on external validation. It's about internal feelings.
I love doing stuff. I think actually, what would be really cool? I would be so curious what would happen, Louis, if you're listening right now. I want you to play a little game with us and we'll see if anybody will do it.
Yeah.
I want you to tag us in an Instagram story where you describe what your money style is and what your money story is live. Like, I want to know what the story, and just tag Louis and I. Mm-hmm. I'm so curious to hear what people's immediate reaction is when they see money walk in the door.
That's it. Yeah. And your money story and your money style equals your strategy, how you show up with money in your life today.
Okay, wait. So I want to back up. So first you've got your money story, which is like, if money walked in the door, how would you react?
Well, your money story is more of like all of the memories and wounds that you have around money. It could be good things. It could be negative things that you remember growing up. That is like, when I grew up, my dad and mom said, like, money doesn't grow on trees. And they were stingy and they didn't give me an allowance and I had to work hard for my money and it was all about hard work or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or it could have been like, man, my parents taught me that money comes freely to me when you add value.
Yeah.
And so I learned how to just be a value-driven individual. And I learned that money flows abundantly and it doesn't like consume me. Whatever your personality or your story is around money.
And you write down.
You write those down. What are those memories? What are those memories that you can think of? What are the painful ones, the good ones? Mix it all together. That's your story. Write those down. Then think about your money personality style. How do you spend money? How do you save money? Do you invest your money or do you just put it in a savings account? Do you not know what your money is because you got so much debt that you're afraid and ashamed to look at it? You know, a lot of people are just like, when I had credit card debt, I didn't want to look at it. So I was like ashamed of it. I was like, I just want this to go away. And so I had to really start taking a look at things differently and say, oh, why am I avoiding money? Why am I avoidant of this? I was afraid of it. So I was strategically doing things in life based on my style and my story. And this whole, if money was a person and it walked in the room, that's more just to see what your relationship with money is. If it was a person, because I believe money is it's an intimate emotional thing. Most people have an emotional reaction with money. And emotions come from human beings. And so if you have an emotional reaction to something, imagine if it was a person. When you receive money, are you grateful and appreciative of the money you receive? Or are you like, gosh, stressed out, anxious, and just like frustrated with it? And imagine if you were always frustrated with a person in your life, how do you think they would feel? They wouldn't enjoy it. Imagine if you were never appreciative of them. You would never express gratitude towards them, especially an intimate partner. They'd probably leave you after a period of time. Or the relationship would not work. And if you thought of money when it came and when it left as an intimate relationship, and you said, as weird as it may sound, money comes to me, and if you said, thank you so much for being with me, where would you like to go? What do you want to do? It's weird thinking of it as a person.
I'm kind of into it.
If you're $1, $100,000, $1 million comes in your bank account, and you just say, thank you, money, for being here, where do you want to go? Do you want me to give you away today? Do you want me to use part of you to buy something for myself? Do you want me to invest in you and put you in somewhere? Do you want to go in the stock market? Do you want me to put you in real estate? Should I hire someone and help them in their life and their dreams with your money today? Where do you want to go? And almost asking it, role playing, as weird as this sounds, I feel like you'll have a better relationship with money when you invest and appreciate the money that comes to you.
You know what's weird is it is woo-woo, but I think that if you don't do things like this, you can have all the tactics in the world and you will still be broke. And, you know, it's fascinating. How did you come up with this?
Studying, asking, 12 years of research, asking all the wealthy people in the world that I knew.
And all your notebooks while you
and
read
all the
podcast.
therapists that I've interviewed and all the healing work I've done on intimacy and relationships. And I realized from some of my biggest episodes around money, and I just would ask people, what's your biggest challenge with money? What's your biggest fear? What's holding you back? What's blocking you? What's your limiting beliefs? And it always came back to this relationship with money. And I know this because I had a bad relationship with it for a long time. And it took years to kind of heal and learn these things and figure out, how can I feel emotionally free with money? Because I don't want money to have power over me.
Yeah.
And even a year and a half ago, I thought I was free with money, and something triggered me. Something hit the emotional, psychological wound of stealing my money. And it made me furious. And I realized it still has power over me.
Yeah.
I'm still not free with money emotionally. And this relationship of me and money is not good still. Maybe in certain areas, but not every area. And I'm sure there's more levels for this. It's not like I've mastered this. This is about me exploring how to set myself emotionally free and have tools that if I ever go back into pain, how do I create freedom quicker?
That's so good.
And again, I just know so many people that I'd ask questions to about what are their struggles around money? What are their fears, their concerns, their insecurities? People are living in fear around money. And that fear is blocking their abundance. It's blocking their ability to earn more and feel free with the money they're earning.
Yeah, and even to learn about how to make money. Because I think a lot of the reasons I go straight to tactics, because apparently I'm buddies with money. I don't know why, but I like him.
You walked in, you're like, hey, let's hang out.
Sup, what you got? But that's why I want to go to tactics immediately, because I'm like, oh, tell me. But
most people can't even go there because they don't have a relationship with it.
They cannot.
Toxic. Their whole relationship is broken.
100%.
So how are you going to do tactics if you can't even be in a room with money?
Yeah, 100%.
If you got an intimate partner in front of you and you don't feel emotionally safe to have an open, vulnerable conversation as a tactic, you've got to do the healing work on you first before you can actually look someone in the eyes and say, hey, you hurt me. Hey, this upset me. I want to talk about it calmly, consciously. Instead of, you hurt me. It's like when you are so reactive or fearful and wounded, you respond based out of a wound, not out of wisdom, not out of like conscious communication, not out of clarity. It doesn't mean everything's going to be comfortable in your life. These are about, you're going to have uncomfortable conversations. But how can you have those uncomfortable conversations like you do from a place of, when someone says that we need to talk, you try to lean into it right away. It doesn't mean it's easy, but you consciously lean in and say, what can we do to make this better?
100%.
You don't avoid it.
No.
You don't run from it. You do the uncomfortable thing, but you try to mend it faster.
Yeah. But it's a great point because you know what would be sweet? I don't know. You don't have this in the book, I don't think, but like I would love a quiz on personality types with money.
Oh, I've got a whole chapter with a quiz.
No, but you don't have a, like where you can go and click and say you're
quiz.
this on your website?
Yes.
What's the website?
Well, I mean, it's in the book and I've got the code in here. I have to find the actual link
so you
for
gotta, you
MakeMoneyEasyBook.com
Okay, perfect.
is the website, but there's a whole
So you
chapter
buy the book.
with a quiz you can take here.
And is there
and
an
it tells you your
avatar?
personality style. Yes.
Okay, so what are you?
Well, I'll tell you this right now. Let me find this page so I can tell the exact process of
Tell me
this.
when you're ready, because
Yes.
and I'll tell a story in the meantime. So I remember I was speaking at a women's event.
Yes.
And it was a finance women's event with a bunch of like kind of pretty wealthy women, all in leadership roles. And this is when I realized that a book like yours was really needed, but I had no answers to this question then.
Yep.
I was going to go on and speak about how to do asset investing at like a high level, alternative investing, blah, blah, blah. But first they had this woo-woo chick in Austin come on and talk
Who
about.
was it? Do you remember?
I don't. I remember a lot of feathers and like there
hat,
were
big hat.
beads. There
Yeah,
was
yeah.
a hat, and I was judgy. I was immediately judgy,
Yes.
and yet this woman came on and she blew my mind. She had us all close our eyes. She
And?
said, "In the audience, everybody close your eyes, and I want you to visualize money, and I want your body to become a visual representation of your feeling of money."
I love it.
And so immediately,
Very woo.
yeah, very woo. And I'm like opening one eye slightly, but my hands like went up. I was like, money, I want it. I like it. And I kind of thought that would be everybody. And she said, now freeze, keep your eyes closed. Now open your eyes. And she had us look around.
And how many people had their hands up?
Oh, maybe like me and one other chick.
Wow.
And almost everybody else was, some of them might've been like this or like this or like this. And that's when I realized, whoa, in this area, I'm messed up in many, many, many areas. But in this one, this is such a wound for people. And if
Big
we don't
wound.
heal the wound, then we definitely cannot apply, a new foundation. We can't apply growth. We can't extend.
Exactly. It's got to heal the wound.
Yeah.
And you were like free. You were like, I'm ready,
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I
Most
still
people
freak
are-
out about money sometimes.
But most people are blocked. You have a different thing. You know,
That was just, I want too much of it. This is what you did to me on your podcast.
you have a
You're
different
like,
thing where it's like, I was like, what's enough? And you're like, I don't know. Like, you're like, there is not enough. You're like, I need it all. And it's not a right or wrong, good or bad conversation, but it's just why?
Yeah.
It doesn't make it wrong. Where is that coming from? That's it. And then you held back the tears. You're like, I'm not going to talk about this. I'm going to close down right now. I was like, okay, cool.
You did. You're
But there
like,
was
what would
something-
it look like if
Yeah.
you were enough? And I was like, shut up,
Like,
Lewis. Stop.
next topic.
Yeah, stop trying to make me emotional.
And
But
it
you're
doesn't
right.
mean you don't have to like reach your ultimate potential and go for what you want to go for. I'm not saying that, but where is it coming from? And, I don't know if you've reflected on that at all, but it's like, I think your money, I can't remember what was enough for you. You're like, I want 100 million. No, I want $1 billion or something. I was like,
Just
okay,
kept going bigger.
why? And is your number still $1 billion or is it bigger now?
Well, I think some of the stuff that's helped me lately, we've talked about this, is that I want a family and I want,
Yeah, it's hard to.
yeah, and I have to make space for that. And there's got to be another priority.
Trad wife.
Yeah, I want to be a
gotta be a
trad
trad
wife.
wife.
You know this.
Hashtag
secretly.
trad wife life.
Oh my God, I want to be in sundresses, just prancing
You
around
know,
like a
in the
happy little mother.
woods, cabin. Yeah, with the little.
That's why I judged the chick. I wanted the hat and the
I know.
beads.
Yeah,
Full
you
circle,
did.
probably.
You wanted to feel emotionally free.
Exactly.
But it's hard to be going for $1 billion business brand and be in your heart all day
Yeah.
and be like emotionally open and have flexibility and space for like chaos with kids running around and just being open to like, cleaning diapers and like feeding and just listening to your kids, like gobbledygook or whatever when they're kids.
Yeah.
Like you have to create that emotional space, that emotional freedom in order to be present. And if you're always in your head of like, we got to grow and build, you don't have space for that.
Yeah.
And it's not a good or bad, right or wrong thing. It's like, what do you want? What's your vision?
Yeah. And what's your season?
And $1 billion, what is that going to do for you?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, buy you more planes than $100 million? Like, I don't know,
Probably
like cool.
Not a big difference between.
And then what? You're going to give a lot of it away or buy more sports teams or invest in cool stuff. But it's like, for what? To manage more problems?
Yep. That's very true.
And at the end of the day, what is it that you want to feel? What is $1 billion going to make you feel when you hit that?
Higher level, higher devils.
And so for me, it's like what I'm hearing your heart say, and maybe it's the season of life or I don't know, clock ticking or whatever it might be, or you just feel like, okay, I also want this, that there's some richness and joy to that as well. That's probably more than $1 billion will ever give you.
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely felt it more. I mean, for young people that really want money, I love that pursuit. I think there's like a level of happiness that comes with being able to cover your basic needs. But man, I think you and I have both felt this. The happiest source of joy in my life is my husband.
Exactly.
You know, and he's also the biggest pain in my ass sometimes, but mostly joy.
Yeah.
But I want to get to this style quiz.
Yeah,
Did
there's
you find
four
it?
different. Yeah, page 43 of my book. There's a whole quiz that you'll go through and then add up your number or whatever. But there's these different styles that each person has, and one is called the director. But there's also a shadow style.
Which one do you think I am?
There's the director, the energizer, the shepherd, and the analyzer. You're probably a director. This is the benefits of a director are a self-starter, focused on results, favors facts over feelings, which is all about you. You don't have feelings. No, I'm just teasing.
None.
You're not intimidated by challenges. You're willing to make tough decisions. You're cool under pressure, and you have a strong action bias. But there are...
Then what's the shadow?
Well, the shadow is the interesting part. The director becomes the dictator.
Oh,
and so the weakness is they don't value input, doesn't value input. They avoid helpful routines and details sometimes. They struggle to think of others, mostly thinking about your needs. Overcommit self and others to too many things, sacrifices healthy practices, doesn't want to wait, very impatient, expresses discontent, or appears uncaring. So it might be you.
Check.
Yeah, I mean, but that's if you go in like the dark side of your personality style.
But that's amazing. So they should read the book, then take your personality style. Because then when you know, and listen, I kind of am a believer, and I'm curious what you think. I think we can change, but not a lot. And so it's like, I'll probably always have a little bit of the dictator. I'll probably have a little bit of the director. But then it's just making sure you lead more from the light than the dark.
And the more you heal, the more you lean into the light side.
Right.
And that's the key. Like you're always going to have that style, but how can you have a healthier version of that style?
Right.
And not the dark version of that style. When I was, 10, 12 years ago, I just was down, like I was making all this money, but my ego was coming out, and I was so wounded in so many places that it was like aggressive everywhere with everyone in certain areas. And I was like, what is wrong with me? It's like this money was revealing more of who I was, of the dark side inside of me. Sure, it showed the light side as well, but when I was triggered emotionally, that came out even bigger. And money doesn't heal who you are, it reveals who you are. And until you learn to heal, then it's just going to reveal the better part of you.
So if you had to think about the steps that you would take to get money, it sounds like one of the first ones is going through these certain levels.
Yes.
And then what do you do next? So now you've got your style. Now you've got your story. Now you've got your personality.
Yes.
What do you do next?
So the first part is really understanding and having awareness about you. That's what it is. It's like reflecting on my story, reflecting on my style, getting my personality style so I understand what that is, and then reflecting on my whole strategy around money my entire life to where I am today. And once I have a kind of a blueprint around what that is, then there are 7 habits for creating financial freedom. And once we start to heal and mend and take ourselves to money therapy, then we can create financial success from a healthier place, not from a place of I need to prove myself. I'm not enough. I need more to feel good about me, or this will bring me happiness. So once we get to that kind of foundation first, then there's 7 habits. The first one is the mindset habit. And this is what I think a lot of people think, when I have money, then I'll give, then I'll be more generous. But the wealthiest people in the world start with generosity, even when they don't have a lot to give. I'm sure you've heard the Tony Robbins story about when he had like $10 in his pocket one day. He was like going broke. He had no money. He didn't know where the money was going to come in. And he was at a restaurant. He took himself to like his final dinner. He was like, all right, I'm broke after this dinner. And he found a young boy who was with his mother. And he went up to the young boy and said, you're paying for your mother, and here's the money. And he gave his last like $5, $10 away for this dinner. And he said he leapt out of the restaurant. Like the feeling of giving it, even though it was his last dollars, made him feel so alive. The generosity of giving a few dollars for this act of generosity. And he said, he went home and someone called him and who owed him money and sent him the money that day, and more money started coming in. Now that might have been a synchronicity. Who knows? But it was more about the feeling of generosity. And again, if you don't have money, you don't have to give it. Yep. But what can you give initially? Again, when I was broke, I reached out to thousands of people literally on LinkedIn in 2007, 8, and 9, and built relationships with people by asking them questions. That curiosity, people don't want you to ask them for advice, but they love talking about their story of how they overcame challenges to achieving their success. Mm-hmm. You're going to get the same answers either way, but you're giving to someone when you say, can you tell me how you overcame this season of life? It seems fascinating to me. Yeah. Versus, can you give me advice on how to get a job? Yeah. No one wants to give their time to someone else, but they'll give of their storytelling about how they overcame something, and they'll give you hours of their time.
It's so true.
It's just a simple switch. How many people could you say, I love to, get 5 minutes of your time to pick your brain? It's like, you don't have time. You're busy. You can't give someone freely of this time that you don't even know. Mm-hmm. But maybe if someone wrote you a nice email and was just like, man, I really love like the business you did back like 7 years ago. And they really researched and said they found something you did. They're like, that was so cool. And how you jumped from here to here. I would love to hear that story if you have a few minutes to share it. Maybe you won't have the time, but you're more likely to have the time if it's the right timing for you to say, yeah, I'm happy to email you or jump on a call, or maybe we can meet in the future. Like, you're more open to it. Anyways, the mindset habit is about being generous. And if you don't have money.
I want to double tap on that for a second, because one of my favorite quotes from one of my smartest mentors, Donald Park, was, if you want money, ask for advice. And if you want advice, ask for money. And I love that, because it's basically another level to what you're saying, which is, especially when you start, asking people to invest in your stuff, asking for a raise, asking for whatever. We think the direct path is the best, which is, I would like a raise, or I would like you to invest in this, or I would like you to X with money. But if instead you said, I saw, Louis, that at this point in your life, you did this X thing. How did you end up breaking up with money then? What was that like? Or if you said to your boss, hey, if one day I wanted to get a raise,
what would it take?
What would it take? What would that look like? What are you actually doing? You're asking for a raise.
Exactly.
But you're asking for advice, which feels much cleaner.
Yes.
So I think that's really, really powerful. And if you can switch that up, I love it.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing tactically on that is like, what does that look like for you daily?
Back then it was me emailing people on LinkedIn constantly.
And it was just like one question. Like,
I tried to find 3 points of connection within every message. Mm-hmm. In the first line, I would find something that we had in common somehow. Even if it was, I see we're both from like the same city. I would just, whatever I could find, I would try to add that in there. Mm-hmm. And then the second line, I would talk about something where I'm really inspired by what they've done. I really like what you created here at Sports Illustrated. I was back in the sports world early on, and how you've built this brand. So I was just emailing CEOs. And then I was always trying to find another point of like connection within the third line, which is, finding, it was usually on LinkedIn, it was who you have in common. Mm-hmm. Oh, I see we're both connected to so-and-so. as our second degree connection. And I was just chatting with them last week about you, and they really love what you helped them with. So I'd always find a connecting person that we had in common. I'd find some couple points of interest that we had in common as well. And then I'd try to acknowledge them for what they've created. And then I'd say, I'd love to learn more about how you did this. And when I originally started doing this, I was just asking people for advice and no one replied. Then I was like, oh, you got to kind of like butter people up a little bit and be more intentional about it and do some research and be like more thoughtful about them, not about what I need. And the more I did that, I just repeated it and everyone started replying to me. And then people were taking me out to lunch and paying for me to learn from them when I was like broke. It's like, oh, there's something to this. And that's actually what inspired me to launch the School of Greatness. I was having all these fascinating conversations with people way more successful than me. And I was like, if people could only hear these conversations, they would be able to build a business like I've just done in the last few years. I was like, why don't I just start recording these things and put them out there? And that's essentially why School of Greatness was born.
That's wild. I mean, I've listened to you for years, as you know. But it is even now, like as successful as maybe somebody, might think you or I are, there are dark days and hard days that I put on School of Greatness, or I put on Founders Podcast, or I put on one of our other friends' podcasts. And I just listen, like I'm feeling a little lost. And so I want to pick up, I want to steal just a little bit of that like energy, that contagion, like you talked about.
Yes.
And so I think that's beautiful. Yeah. So it's this generosity and constant reach out.
And gratitude.
Yeah.
When you're broke, you're not grateful by default.
Yeah.
You're frustrated. You're resentful of the government. You're resentful of who's in, which political party's in power and what they're not giving you. You're frustrated that they took away this grant or these loans or this thing. You're like, I'm not getting what I want and they're not taking care of me. Or there's some resentment or frustration typically, not by everyone. So you've got to learn to shift it and say, what am I grateful for? And living in gratitude and generosity. That's the first principle. Most people say, I'll be grateful, I'll be generous when I have more money.
Yeah.
You need to make that the first principle, the first tactic, and the first feeling, and meshing them together. How can I be a giver? And what that looks like for me now is when I see someone like you doing so well, I reach out to you. I'll send a voice note, a video message, a text, and say, God, this is amazing what you're doing. Keep crushing it. If I can help with anything, let me know. And if you're looking for advice on this in the future, I got your back. It doesn't have to be a lot.
Yeah.
Or it could be, hey, just thinking about you lately, what's the biggest challenge you're faced with right now in your business? And just doing that once every few months, or what's the biggest challenge you're having in life with it right now with your friends? Doing that once every few months with your top 20 connections and just being top of mind. And then when they tell you their biggest challenge, solve it as fast as you can. Because it's usually a pain they've had for months.
Yeah.
And when you solve their problem, and when you also connect them with one person who is the solution, you're now you're not just helping one person, you're actually helping two people expand. And then you become the champion of their relationship. They always talk about, man, so grateful for Lewis for connecting us. I have two buddies of mine that both, I did this like 4 years ago with two friends of mine. And one guy was like, I'm trying to figure out social media. Can you help me like what you do? And I was like, it's not something I do for someone. I can give you strategy, but I know a guy if you're looking for someone to help you run this. And I reached out to the guy and said, hey, this person's looking for this. Can you help him? He said, yes. I connect them. Literally a year and a half later, they send me a car to my apartment building because they made like $10 million together. Over this next like couple of years, maybe it was 2.5 years. They do $10 million together and they think of me as the champion of their wealth, of their abundance, of their success. They did all the work, but I was the champion that connected them. I thought about both of them, how they could both succeed. And they sent me a car as a gift, as a thank you. And it's just when you can do that for someone, you're expanding people's opportunities for success and growth. And you become the champion. They always want to give back. If they're good people, they're going to want to give back. And just reach out to your friends, your family, say, what's your biggest challenge right now? How can I help? And try to solve it. Like call someone right then and say, I got the person, let me three-way you in now. Like do it now. And then I learned this by hosting LinkedIn networking events in 2008, 2009. I did 20 events around the country using LinkedIn as the platform to market these LinkedIn networking events.
Yeah.
And the economy was crashing, people were struggling. This is how I got started. And every person that walked in the door, I'd say, what's your name? Put a name tag on them. And I'd say, what's your business and what's your biggest challenge? And then 10 people later, I'd say, what's your name? What's your business? What's your biggest challenge? And I'd be like, oh, someone was a graphic designer and someone needs graphic design services. I would take this person and walk them to them and say, connect, do your deal now. And I would do that for everyone that would come to the events. And they were all succeeding, sending me emails and letters and referrals and commissions for just connecting the dots.
Well, you did that for me with Rory, remember, in the book. And so because of that, I learned all about the inside of books and never would have done it. So it's really good. And I feel like the only way you can kill this practice of gratitude is by expecting something in return, right?
Yes.
So if you do this, you can't get mad when they never send you the car.
Yeah. And
You
I wasn't
can't get mad.
expecting it.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is like the key. All right. We've got point one.
Yes.
Let's do 2 and 3.
Okay.
And then we're going to make them read your book for the
Yes.
others.
The second one is the mapping habit. And this is really kind of creating a map and almost like a game plan for how much money you want to make. This is Codie Sanchez like tactics. I want to make a billionaire. Okay. So it's why do we want to be a billionaire? What's the process for getting there? And how am I going to get there? And what's this next season of life, these next 3 to 6 months that I'm going to start working towards this? What's the map? What's the game plan? Creating micro goals, bigger goals, and starting to strategize how to get there. When I was broke on my sister's couch, I was like, I just want more money. And then I was like, okay, a mentor was like, you got to get clear.
Yep.
Just in the next 3 months, how much do you want to make? You're broke. You're not going to be a millionaire in a year. Maybe, but it's like, just plan for 3 months. What do you want? I was like, I want $5,000. And he goes, how do you want to make it? Tell me if you could do it doing anything. I go, I want to make it giving a speech. I want to speak and get paid $5,000. And at the time I was learning public speaking and Toastmasters. So I was developing the skill, but I was not that good yet. But he said, okay, are you willing to go all in on this? Because you're so far away from $5,000 at this point, broke on my sister's couch. And I was like, I'm willing to go all in. He goes, put a date by when you want to accomplish this by. I want you to sign it and certify it, make a certification and put it on your wall and look at it every day and then take an action every single day to go make that $5,000. And the first week may just be, I'm going to go give 3 speeches for free and get reps. I'm going to get coaching. I'm going to get feedback. Then I'm going to charge, $5 for like a ticket to a workshop. Then I'm going to do this. Then I'm going to keep giving free, like whatever it is, map out the game plan to make that $5,000. Within 3 months, I made $5,000 on one speech. And I made money along the way, a little bit here and there, by taking the action on the mapping habit. So get clear on your goal. If yours is $1 billion, by when?
Yep.
What's the strategy? What's the yearly strategy? How are you going to break it down seasonally? Who are the people you need to hire? It's creating that game plan and map and then signing a certificate to yourself from you and dating it and framing it and saying, this is going to happen. And it doesn't matter actually if it happens or not, but it's creating a clear intention, going back to that energetic feeling of this is happening. What do I need to do to make it happen? And just getting clear. The third one is the monetizing habit. This is something that when I was, again, broke on my sister's couch, I didn't know how to monetize anything because I didn't understand money. I didn't have a college degree yet, and I didn't know who would give me money. So I had to learn what are these intangibles, these hidden assets that I could monetize because I didn't have any hard skills that were monetizable. And these are some of the things I'm talking about, learning how to build relationships, connecting people, overcoming fears, overcoming self-doubt, setting clear goals, accomplishing them. It was just like having passion and energy, asking dumb questions to smart people. I didn't think these were skills, but who would have thought asking dumb questions to millionaires for years would have helped me build a business, would have turned into a 12-year podcast, one of the biggest podcasts in the world. I never thought I could make money asking dumb questions, and that's what I do every day. But it's learning about what are these hidden skills, these hidden assets that you don't think you have, starting to develop those and bring those out. And I talk about how to find and monetize your uniqueness that can really bring that out and bring abundance into your life. And I'm telling you, I didn't think I could do any of this. I was so dumb. I was so insecure. I had no skills. I almost flunked out of college and almost flunked out of high school. And I needed tutors every year. And I was in special needs classes. So I didn't have the skill set to go get a job or do these things. But I learned how to monetize my inner world and my inner skills for external financial success. And you can too.
It's so good. Yeah, I wonder if in the future there'll be like a little money gym, sort of like there's a physical gym, like, because you can see, thinking about these ideas, it is therapy, but it's a different type.
It is.
If our international language right now is money,
Yep.
and it is the one thing that we all spend most of our life in pursuit of besides sleeping, but yet we spend so little time learning about it.
Yes.
We spend so little time diagnosing it, and then we spend so little time figuring out our decision making on it or coming up with daily habits on it. So no wonder we're broke. 47% of Americans die broke. And why? Because we don't know how to habituate it. We don't know how to diagnose it.
Yeah.
And then we don't know how to make decisions on it.
I mean, unless you're Bill Perkins and you want to die broke,
Exactly.
die with zero. But doesn't mean you die. You lived rich, but you end with
Believe
zero.
me, he's doing just fine. That guy,
But most people live with zero and die with zero.
That's right.
He lives abundantly, but he's planning to give it all away at the end of his life, I guess, which is a different strategy. So, yeah, the goal is to really figure out what your inner currency is and how to maximize that and monetize your inner currency.
What's been the coolest thing that's happened since you've put out the book? Have a bunch of people responded about it yet?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's more of like, going on tour was really cool to just see people and share these concepts and get people opening up. For me, and again, this is a little woo-woo, but it's getting people to open their heart to feel like they are worthy of their life. It's feeling I am worthy of the pursuit that I'm creating, whether I'm making tons of money, a little money, some money, no money, but reminding people of their worthiness. Because when I believe people are more self-confident, more self-worthy, they create and attract opportunities. You become wealthier financially. A person who lacks confidence and self-worth is usually going to sabotage good things when they come to them. And so you might be able to make something, but then you're like, I'm guilty and ashamed that I have this. It's learning to step into your power and your worth, not in an egotistic way, but just in a conscious, loving way. And saying, how can I be a giver? How can I be grateful for all that I've received? And how can I be generous in life? And I think that's a worthy life.
Yeah. But, also a lot of the woo-woo stuff, people get mad about it with money because it's not tactical.
Yeah.
This is very tactical, which is why I think it's pretty rare, actually. I mean, I've read just about every book I could find on money because I do find it fascinating. But when people ask me, what are the steps to become rich when you have no money? My answer is typically
tactics.
You got to go obsess on your skill set and earn more.
Yes.
And you got to obsess on learning more. That's like 100%. Step 1 and 2.
And I did that.
But not without this.
But I did that and I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
I made money and it solved money problems, but all my relationships were broken.
Yeah.
And I was emotionally broken. So I was like, well, I just need to be bigger and better and be number one always. And if I drop down anywhere and I make less money one year than the next year, then I'm going to be stressed out and frustrated and I'm going to be angrier and I need to go make more and work harder. And I was exhausted. Yeah. It was exhausting. And it doesn't mean it wasn't fun at times. It's nicer to have money than to not have money. I don't want to go back on my sister's couch. And that fear of not wanting to go back made me like hold on to it more as opposed to being more relaxed and flowing and allowing it to come and go and appreciating when it's here and saying, thank you for being here. And I got to spend you here. Great. I'm excited for that as well. And it was that journey of healing and understanding, oh, what's my money wiring? Why am I this way? Oh, let me just reflect on some of these stories and like, oh, I guess that's why my nervous system, I react around money in these situations naturally because that's what happened to me growing up. So let me start to mend those things so that I can actually feel rich and be rich.
Is there a difference between men and women that you've seen and the way they think about money writ large?
Probably, but I'm not sure how to explain it right now. And I'm also, my wife is really smart when it comes to a lot of things, but she studied money for most of her life, and she had a healthy relationship with it when she was younger. Like she would tell me stories of like they grew up in, poor Mexico, in the south of Mexico. They didn't have a lot of money growing up, but her dad, whenever they would have money, he'd have like her and her siblings on the bed, like throwing money in the air, jumping and saying, money is good. Money is fun. Like we are happy, and money, we love money and money loves us. These are like things that she would say. And her dad would create these environments, even though he didn't have a lot of money. But it was creating like an emotional connection with money, that money is a good thing. People with money aren't evil. People with money aren't bad. Maybe some people are, but it doesn't mean you have to be. And it can feel good with it. So she always had a healthy relationship with it. She started making money when she was younger. She was in her late teens. She was doing TV and movies. And she's like, she went to seminars. She went to like Rich Dad, Poor Dad seminars 20 years ago.
That's wild.
And she was like studying books and learning. And I think that mindset of like, I'm going to keep learning and I'm going to have a healthy relationship with it. And it doesn't have power over me. It's, for her, I think that's rare in women, because a lot of women I haven't met that do that. I think a lot of women have been, maybe it's shifted now in the girl boss era, but I think a lot of women maybe just haven't been as invested in learning and invested in investing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you know Chris Powell. Do you know him? He was on Iced Coffee Hour recently. Okay. But I just had him on yesterday, and he was like, I've been trying to get women for years to invest. And it's been like pulling teeth trying to get people to just invest $10 a month in the stock market. And so he's like, it's been so hard to get women to invest. And I'm not sure why that is. But maybe you see it differently with your community because you're attracting women who want to do what you do.
Well, I have found that, if you're a woman out there talking about money consistently, it's a little, some people can perceive it as gauche or...
Gauche? What
like,
is this?
It's just like...
Trad wife?
Exactly.
Is this another term that I don't know?
I wish. Like a little showy, not in good taste.
Yeah.
And I have found, what's interesting, actually, Louis? I can quantify this. In our group, at first, they wanted a separate group in our business buying community for the women. They wanted a separate channel, basically, in our Slack. And we have these different channels about different types of deals and industries and sectors. And they were like, we want a women business buying thing. And my immediate reaction was, no.
Why?
No. Like, your vagina, my vagina have nothing to do with whether you can buy a business or not.
Exactly.
Totally unrelated. But then I talked to a few of them, and that made a few mad. And so they talked to me about it, and I can sometimes be brash. So I was like, well, let me hear you. Let's talk to me through this.
What'd they say?
That they were embarrassed. They were embarrassed about some of the questions that they had. They had shame about the size of the deals they had versus the other guys. They were scared about how they negotiated versus others.
And this is the thing. When we are living in fear, shame, or guilt around these things, we are limiting our power and our ability to make decisions. Or we have to hide in different types of groups and say, I'm only going to talk to these people. Yep. That means money or these deals or the flow of money has some type of power over you because you are ashamed to talk about it to other people. Yep. This is not a right or wrong, good or bad conversation. This is is that supporting and serving your life? Do you feel free when you have to hide yourself and have conversations in limited groups versus with anyone? Yep. And that's why in the beginning of the conversation, I was saying, start having conversations with everyone around money. You don't have to reveal what's in your bank account day one, but start just, hey, what's your thoughts on money? What do you think about when money comes to you? Or do you ever think about investing? If so, what do you think about it? What's your process look like? Yep. Just having some general conversations and feeling more safe in those conversations with girlfriends, with guy friends, with colleagues, whatever it might be, so you are in power, not feeling like it has power over you.
It's just so necessary because with those women, what I eventually said was, instead of doing that, can I push you guys to have this conversation in the main group? Yeah. And I will lead it. I'll lead it off. I'll tell some embarrassing things about me first because you are self-limiting by going to this group because the average net worth of the woman in our group is lower than the men. You guys also are doing slightly smaller deals than the guys on average. So if you pull yourselves over here into a group of people that have less money, that do smaller deals. What are you replicating? Well, now you're in a group that's smaller, when the whole point of you being in here is for you to be in a group of other winners. And so we eventually sort of compromised on this idea. And I said, listen, if anybody's rude to you, if anything negative happens, like you ping me direct and I will make sure that I handle it. But can I please push you slightly to go bigger?
Yeah. And I'm all for people like, being in safe environments and having safe settings when they're talking about something that's vulnerable for you. I'm not saying you have to do this right away with billionaires, because you're not going to know what they know.
Right.
But I think is also a process of, that's why it is important to read books or watch your show and get mentorship and be in these types of groups, because it's going to expose you to feeling more comfortable over time. And I wasn't comfortable within my first year of learning stuff. It still takes time, but I'm also now comfortable knowing that I don't know a lot. And when you think you've learned a lot about money, you actually realize you don't know that much at all still. There's like different levels. You're like, what are these people doing? I don't know what this terminology is. I'm still a beginner, it seems like. But I'm okay that I'm a beginner, and I'm okay to say, well, this is where I'm at. And if that's embarrassing to me, then it doesn't matter as much anymore. And I think learning to be okay with who I am, with where I'm at, no matter what environment or setting I'm in, is power. And it's having that courage that makes you feel more empowered as well.
Yeah, the only embarrassing way that you can do this is by trying to pretend you're something you're not.
Exactly.
Because then people can see. But if you're pretty candid about the fact that, yeah, man, I'm not making as much as I want to, and I know you guys have 7 figures over here, I'm working on my first 5. I'd love to hear more about what you would do if you only had 5.
Yeah.
People are like, great,
that's
raw.
Yeah, and they want to help you. When you're real and raw about where you're at, the right people will be inspired by your vulnerability and say, hey, if you ever want to talk about it, let me know. I'm happy to support you getting here. Here's some things I would do that I would avoid. And if they're not encouraging, get out of those communities and groups.
Great point.
Find people in other groups that are more supportive and safe.
I am so glad you came on today, Lewis Howes. Make money easy. I can't wait to see everybody tag us in their videos of their money personality and relationship. And I'm really excited to pass on this book. I think this is the missing piece that I didn't have, where, before you go buy a business, make sure you understand how your relationship with money is. So I'm going to plug it right in.
Appreciate it. Thanks
you.
For being here. I don't want people to sabotage the deals they make because they feel unworthy or insecure, or they feel like, oh, now that this is happening, I'm in a breakdown. What do I do? And let me retreat because emotionally I don't feel safe. So the goal is not to retreat. It's to say, how can I go through this challenge and adversity within my business and expand and overcome it, not retreat.
Make money easy. Go buy the book everywhere books are bought. Follow Lewis Howes on all the varying sites, but my favorite is School of Greatness. It's on YouTube and anywhere you listen to podcasts. Lewis, you're the man. Thanks for being here. You guys, tell me if you felt the same way that I felt about this episode. Was this as useful and insane as I thought it was? I hope that hundreds of thousands of you are watching this on YouTube, and I know that hundreds of thousands of you are listening to it just about everywhere. If you found this impactful, do me a solid. Tag me on Instagram and let me know that you are about to get that money because of this episode. I want to see all the stories about you out there making money and making impact, because you are a big deal to me. Until next time. Hey guys, if you've ever thought about buying a business, we've built what I think is the best acquisitions and business buying community and education curriculum in the world. If you've ever thought about wanting to buy or own a business, or if you want to add more businesses to the mix, it's called the Contrarian Community. And what this is the goal is we give you the 3 things that the best business buyers use: your own advisory team, your own investment committee, and a deal team. We get together each week to review deals live and beat up all the deals that you're currently looking at, while you simultaneously learn the best way possible, which is called modeling, by seeing other people put together deals. This is how private equity buys businesses. This is how investment teams work. And we're stealing the methods from Wall Street and giving them to you. If this is interesting to you, go to click the link and you can actually talk to my team direct about if this is a fit or not. We can help guide you. The link is in the show description.
On on that journey with you so that it's not an us versus them, so that it's all of you together.
There was some sort of societal shift where historically we used to work together with our families. We used to take over family businesses. We used to actually hire our family members. And that was the norm for most of human history, right? It would actually be bizarre if we did not in some way, shape, or form work with and alongside our family. And then, maybe 2 generations ago, 3 max, that changed. And then it became nepotism to hire people in your family. And then it became actually bad for the next generation to pass things down for them. And I'm not sure we weren't told a lie about that. I work with my father now. He actually works with my company in some ways. I was my brother's first job out of college. My mom's worked with me before. And now my husband and I work together. And, Elizabeth and you worked on the book cover design together as well. So I think there's something really beautiful about, I don't have kids, so I can't speak to that, but allowing your family to come along for the ride. It's like, how can you expect them to be happy for you and your accomplishments if they don't know what they are, if they don't understand them, and if they can't touch them, see them, and feel them? So when it comes to parenting, just to stick on this for one more minute, when it comes to parenting, what habits or rituals do you have with your son in order for you to have real quality time, even though you are traveling all the time?
Yeah, I really try to understand and very clearly establish an awareness of the difference between time and energy. And this is a really important mindset shift for all areas of life, but definitely for your relationships. And the difference here is I can spend an hour with you, but if I'm sitting there on my phone, worried about emails, responding to texts, looking at Instagram, you are not going to feel my presence in any way. And we are not going to feel connected in any way. It's similar to what we were saying earlier about having the phone on the table. Kids are the exact same way. They're no different. If you have your phone out in front of them while you're supposedly spending time with them, that hour, they are not going to feel any connection. But 10 minutes of truly present energy, when they are the only person in the world to you, can last for hours and hours in their mind. And so that is really what I try to focus on. It is, I may be in a season of my life where I am unbalanced, where I am like all hands on deck, charging, focused. Right now, I am in one of those, trying to go out and spread the message of this book, which is very important to me. But when I'm there, I am going to be tuned off of everything else, and it's going to be there. Like, I mean, my favorite thing in the world with my 2.5-year-old boy is like roughhousing. I can't be on my phone while I do that, right? Like, he wants to wrestle, he wants to like get thrown around, get tossed up in the air, all of those things. And so it is the most beautiful thing because it forces you to turn off in a very real way. But that same principle applies to all of your relationships. I mean, if you're like, supposedly having quality time with your partner and you're sitting there thinking about a million other things on your phone, the way to think about your phone is frankly just like it is allowing a million people to be there with you while you're sitting with the one person. And you would know if they were actually sitting in the room that you weren't having quality time with this person. But it's the exact same thing. It's just in the form of a technology. And so finding a way to actually separate from it, for me, I actually have to have it in a different room. Like I can't have my phone in front of me when my son's there if I want to be present. It needs to be in my office in another room so that I can be there. I had I haven't shared this, but I had a moment recently. I was in my office focusing on something, and my son barges through the door, and he's 2.5, so he starts just creating chaos in my office. I'm trying to focus on something. He starts like throwing stuff. He's jumping up on the couch, like throwing books on the ground. And I started having this enormously negative thought pattern of like, why is he doing this? So annoying. I'm trying to focus. Doesn't he realize I'm working? And I snapped myself back to 4 years ago when my wife and I were struggling to conceive. And we'd been struggling for a year or two. And I prayed every single night that we would one day have a healthy child. And then here I was in that moment complaining about the very thing that I had prayed for. And it was a reminder to me that sometimes the things you pray for become the things that you complain about if you let them. Sometimes you are literally living your prayers, but you're not recognizing it in the moment. You're not allowing yourself to zoom out and appreciate that in the moment. So finding those moments to pause and just bask in gratitude and force yourself to zoom out when you catch yourself doing that, holding yourself to the fire, I just think is so important in life.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Hard too.
Very hard.
What do you do when you get in those negative thought patterns, when you start to get annoyed, if you want to zoom out, is there a mental exercise you use for that?
I think it's the pause and breathe. It requires a level of self-awareness in moments to be able to hold yourself to the fire. Like, you need to be able to tell yourself the truth. We talked about having truth tellers that can say that to you. But in a lot of moments in life, you're not going to have that person there in your ear. You have to be that person in your own ear. And it means you have to be self-critical enough to do that. I do think that, like, in the modern day, on social media in particular, there's been this whole trend of give yourself some grace, give yourself a little bit of grace. And while I agree that occasionally we need to give ourselves a little bit of grace, I think for most people, we actually need to hold ourselves to the fire more often than not. I think we give ourselves too much grace. And look, maybe that's a harsh take, but I just think it's true. I think most of the time you need to hold yourself to the fire a little bit and your life will improve. Yeah.
I want to talk really quickly about some of the frameworks I've stolen from you to make my life better, easier, simpler, a little richer and wealthier. You kind of popularized this idea for me around razors. Like a rule of thumb that simplifies decision making, but you have quite a few of them. Can you explain what it is and what are some of your favorites and how do you use them?
Yeah. So the idea of a razor comes from philosophy originally. It's something that allows you to shave away possible explanations and get to the heart of something. So the best way to say it is what you said. It's a rule of thumb that simplifies decision making. The most famous razor, which is probably my favorite one, is Occam's razor, which is the idea that the simplest possible explanation is often the best one. So this is for all the conspiracy theorists out there. I'm sorry. But Occam's razor typically will say that if there is some, crazy thing happening and we want to say that the government is doing some whole like crazy back end, crazy thing, the simplest explanation is like, no, it's just the obvious thing that is happening. The government is not particularly competent. If you have ever flown, you have seen the government in action with the TSA. Or if you have ever gone to try to get a new license, you have seen it at the DMV. That's the government. But all jokes aside on that, Occam's razor is amazing because it's all about the idea that simple is beautiful. And so whenever you have a simple explanation for something or a very complex one that will require a lot of assumptions to be true, usually the simple one is correct. Another one of my favorites for the world of the internet is Hanlon's razor, which says that you should never attribute to malice that which can be adequately explained by stupidity or ignorance. So the second you are in an argument with someone and you start saying like, oh, this person is malicious in their actions or they're in their intent, sometimes it is just ignorance or stupidity. And a lot of the time it's just ignorance or stupidity. That will save you from a whole lot of heartaches and headaches in life.
You know what the other one, it's not a razor, but you sometimes send it to me when I'm pissed off about something on the internet, is I think you should talk about the spotlight effect.
There are two big mistakes in life. Worrying about what other people think about you and believing that other people think about you in the first place. The reality is no one is thinking about you. Everyone is just going through life worried about themselves. The spotlight effect is this behavioral phenomenon whereby we overestimate the degree to which other people are noticing or observing our actions and behaviors. Basically, we think everyone is looking at us when they're not. Everyone is just worried about themselves. Call it the Zoom phenomenon, because when you're on a Zoom chat, you're so worried about how you look, and then you go look at the statistics, and 90% of the time, people are just looking at themselves. So literally no one is looking at you. You are the only one looking at yourself. And that is true for life. And understanding the spotlight effect is the key to unlocking your own capabilities, because you will be more willing to put yourself out there. There's so much hidden talent in the world that is not putting itself out there for fear of judgment from failure. You're not actually afraid of failure. You're afraid of what other people will think of you if you fail. But no one's thinking about you.
No. And at last, now that we have a bunch of people on the internet, what I have realized is that even when you are literally the talk of the internet, it lasts 24 hours, a week, max. A lot of our friends have been huge, scandals, issues, whatever, and then they're gone. It's like a week later, nobody cares about it. And so, but I understand why people worry, because I was talking to a friend of ours, Sri, and Sri, was just getting ridiculed on the internet for I don't know, being Indian and pro-humans, basically. And Sri's about the nicest guy in the world, super competent. And I remember when this started happening to him, I reached out to him. I'm like, hey, man, how you doing? Like, I know how this goes because it's happened to me, not to that degree, because that was a whole different thing with politics involved. But you've had it happen too. The first time it happened to me, I felt like when you are scared about something physically happening to you. There's almost a visceral response that your body has that's like, oh my God, everybody's talking about me online. And it is this, you almost have to overcome it and then realize actually nobody really cares. It was a split second. It's really easy to engage and then you're not worth it. But I understand why people worry, because you can hear about the spotlight effect. And then when the spotlight is even slightly upon you, everything goes out the window.
It's very true. It's also just a reminder. I think it instills in you a sense of humility the first time that happens, because you realize one very sad thing about the world, which is a line from Billions. That's one of my favorite lines. Paul Giamatti's character says it to Axe in the first episode. He says, make no mistake, they might be cheering for you now, but they are dying to boo. And those things, when they happen, people come out of the woodwork to boo and get really excited about booing. And it's a reminder that a harsh truth of life is that most people don't want to see you be successful. There are a lot of people out there who say they want you to be successful until you get up to the point where you're more successful than them, and then they're the first ones ready to try to tear you back down. And so to the point that we made at the very beginning on like finding your people that will truly support you and really genuinely want to see you win, they are few and far between. Yeah. And you need to cherish those people, and you need to be that to someone else. And so that's like when you send a text to the person when they're going through that, people never forget who was there for them when shit hit the fan, when they were down. And it doesn't mean you flew there and you have to be there and give advice and do all sorts of things. It's literally just texting someone to say, hey, I'm with you. These fires are happening in LA right now. Sending a text to the person to say, like, I'm with you, goes so far and is so impactful in the way that you interact with the world. And all of this comes to this idea of social wealth, which is like, there is clear scientific evidence that the people you surround yourself with determine your outcomes. Mm-hmm. The Pygmalion effect says that we rise to the level of expectations that others have for us in our circle. So if you are surrounded by people who think you are capable of more, who believe in you, who are telling you to think bigger, who are pushing you to grow, you will rise to the level of those expectations. So what better reason to choose wisely about the people that you have in your circle, the people that you are surrounding yourself with, the people you are gifting your precious energy in your life?
Yeah, it's a really important part you talk about in the book, and I love that study because it's wild. Do you want to talk? I know you talk about it in the book. Yeah. You want to break down the study?
Yeah. The Harvard study of adult development is this incredible longitudinal study that was done over the course of 85 plus years. They tracked the lives of 1,300 original participants and then all of their descendants, so like about 2,000 plus people. And they found that the single greatest predictor of physical health at age 80 was relationship satisfaction at age 50. Not your cholesterol, not your blood pressure, not your smoking or drinking habits. How you felt about your relationships determined your physical health outcomes, how you aged over your course of your life. And so we know, scientifically, we know that relationships are the key to living a good life, a happy, healthy life. Every single person, you go and ask them, what do you want your ideal day to look like at age 80? No one says alone. Everyone says surrounded by love, right? You got your partner, maybe you want kids, grandkids, your friends. That's what we all want. And yet, when you ask them what they're doing today, very few are investing in that future. You know to invest in financial wealth. You know that if you want to be rich when you're older, you have to invest every single day. But if you want to have rich relationships, you have to do the same. You have to send the text to the friend. You have to make sure that you are the reason that your group of friends is getting together. You have to spend time with your parents or your partner or your children. These things don't just magically appear out of thin air. You have to invest in them the same way that you do in your financial wealth.
Yeah, that's why I think it's interesting. I mean, you have a lot of different reasons why you focused on the actual 5 levels to wealth here. But I think I want people to read the actual book, but talk high level about, you spent a ton of time researching what are the things that matter. What creates a wealthy life? Why did you choose these 5? What are they? And how is that going to impact somebody's life?
Yeah. When I went on this journey after that conversation that I had with the friend that we talked about earlier, and made this big change in my life, I went on a multi-year journey to try to understand what were the things that contributed to a truly happy, healthy, fulfilling, wealthy life. And the realization there was that the scoreboard is fundamentally broken. Peter Drucker, the famous management theorist, said, what gets measured gets managed. So the thing that you can measure ends up being the thing that you focus on. It's the thing that you narrowly, myopically hone in on and optimize around. Money is extremely measurable. So it becomes the thing that we narrowly focus on. And the truth is that money is a part of living a truly wealthy life, but it is just a part. There are all of these other things that we sort of know in the back of our mind matter, but we don't have a way to measure them. We don't have a way to think about them in the same way. And so as a result, we don't manage them. We don't actually think about investing in them in the same way. That is what I'm trying to change. And so as I came to this idea, this thesis, I went and talked to thousands of people. And basically did 2 things. One, I went to much older people who had lived long lives and talked to them about the advice they would have for their younger selves and how they felt about living a good life. And then I went and talked to younger people and asked what they wanted when they were 80. What did they want their life to look like? This question of what does your ideal day look like? And the thing that you find is that we all want the same thing. And it has very little to do with money. Money is kind of an enabler, but not an end in and of itself. And it was 4 things. It was time, people, purpose, and health. We want time, freedom to choose. We want to feel free. People, we want to be surrounded by love. Purpose, we want to feel like we know what we are doing every day, that there is some reason that we are doing these things. And then health, we want to feel good of mind and body. Money, again, was an enabler to those things, but not an end in and of itself. It was a tool, but not the goal, if you will. And that was how I really came to this idea and this construct of thinking about this new scoreboard, a new way to measure your life across the broader set of pillars that contribute to building a good life. And the thesis is that if you measure the right things, you will take the right actions and you will create the right outcomes. If you measure the wrong things, if you're just measuring for the battle of money, you may win that battle, but you will lose the war of the broader picture of your life. So we need to measure for the full war. We need to measure for the entire picture of what we're doing, and then we'll make the right decisions and we'll create the right outcomes.
Do you think young Sahil, young finance bro Sahil would struggle with talking about love? Did you talk about love back then too?
Talk about love when I was young finance bro. I viewed a lot of things as a distraction to the important thing, which was making money. I was so narrowly focused on external affirmations. And I have this thing in the book, this thing that I call the status test, the bot status test, where you ask yourself when you're about to buy something, would I buy this if I couldn't tell anyone that I had it? If I couldn't post it on Instagram, if I couldn't show anyone, like, would I buy this watch? Would I buy this car if no one knew about it except me? Usually the answer is no. And what you realize when you start to think about that question is you are living a lot of your life for the benefit and pleasure of other people, which is kind of a crazy thing to think about. Like, how much of my life am I actually living for other people rather than for myself? And so I think that a lot of my life, my whole mental model for life was like, I am going to wake up one day when I have X million dollars and feel happy. And every time I would get to that number and it would have disappeared and it would be some other number. And we have studies to say this. Michael Norton, this Harvard Business School professor, went and interviewed high net worth individuals, people worth anywhere from $1 million on through 100 million plus. And he asked them, how happy are you on a scale of 1 to 10? So they answered. And then he said, how much more money would you need to be at a 10? Across the board, whether they were worth $1 million or 100 million, everyone said 2 to 5x as much. It didn't matter what level they were at, which makes no sense. So we know it's not about some arbitrary number. It is about understanding your definition of enough. Where do you actually need to get to? What does your life look like where you are truly fulfilled? It's not going to be the money. It's going to be what that enables in your actual life in these other areas. I think I really would have struggled with that. That being said, and I need to make this clear, I am by no means saying that money doesn't matter. I am not telling anyone that they should go and, give up their worldly possessions and live in the Himalayas as a monk. Like, if you want to do that, by all means, go do it. I just won't be joining you. I like money. I like being able to afford things. I like having money. I am just saying that it can't be the only thing that you focus on, that you need to invest in these other areas in some way, shape, or form across the entirety of your life. There may be seasons of your life when financial wealth is your primary focus. Yeah. And one of the key concepts in the book is the idea of seasons, the idea that what you prioritize or focus on during any one season can and should change. Your 20s and 30s are a great time to prioritize building a financial foundation for the rest of your life. You talk about this all the time. The fact that you can invest money early and it will compound and grow for the rest of your life. Incredible. You should do that. That's a great season. But when your kids are 5, it may be a great season for you to prioritize your relationship with your kids and sort of be in more maintenance mode from a financial wealth building standpoint, if you make that decision. But the point around all of this is it's up to you. You don't need to accept the default definition of success that the world hands you. You get to create your own. And the truth is, you will never feel successful unless you create your own definition of success.
You've got to do that. And, other people aren't going to like it. I think that's the other part that's true. I mean, you know this. I'm terrible at responding to text messages. Why? Because I try to not have my phone on me all the time. Otherwise, I get distracted, and I have a specific agenda and goal for the day. And so if I let even people I love and adore distract me from that goal, then that means I got to work longer. I got to stay later. I can't have dinner with my husband. My husband's and my dinner every night is a priority. And so, I think for somebody listening, if they're like, all right, this makes sense. I've seen you personally sacrifice a bunch of career progression things that you could do. At one point, you were raising a big fund and you were going to build another asset management business, which we've both done before. And then you were like, no, actually, I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to think and I'm going to be with my son. Do you have a cost benefit analysis or a framework you use to decide, okay, this is a goal for me or this is an anti-goal?
Yeah, I think it's really important what you just said, which is like, there are trade-offs that you have to make. There are sacrifices along the way. And I have explicitly said no to a number of opportunities where I could make more money because I know what they would require is me being pulled away from this time freedom that I have with my son primarily during this window of time when I'm playing such a special role in his life. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to go all out for those things when he's 8 years old and spending more time in school, or 12, or whenever. Maybe when he leaves the house, when he's graduates from high school, I lean into a bunch of these opportunities. What you decide in the current season does not preclude you from changing in the future season. And look, we made this decision in a very real way when it comes to my wife's path. My wife was on a high-powered designer track, rising through the ranks in a very competitive industry, doing great. And when our son was born, she made the decision that she wanted to truly prioritize being a mom during these early years of his life. Where we live, in the Northeast and in a lot of coastal cities, that was a weird decision. She still gets comments from other moms in town saying, "You're just a mom."
Oh, gross.
And we hate it because I think it's the most important job in the world. I think it's remarkable the energy that she puts towards it and the impact it has on our relationship with our son and on his development. But her ability to say, this is one season of life, and I'm going to really be immersed in being a mom during this season. And that doesn't mean that I'm not going to go back and be a designer in the next season. When he's in school and I have more time and he's not home all the time, I can go do that. And I have the freedom to make that decision as I so choose. That is a really empowering way to think about your life because it's a reminder that there's no such thing as a one-way door. All of these are two-way doors. You can walk back through them and you can go back and prioritize these other things again. And we need to recognize that more in life.
Yeah. You also have some interesting takes on being married and how to treat your wife in a world where there's a lot of tension between men and women these days. There's tension with traditional, non-traditional roles. There's tension with, God, I've been on Twitter too much lately, but with how people feel about women in relationships and should you have them. When you think about your partnership, she's beautiful, smart, very supportive of you. How did you decide that she was the one? And how do you also think husbands should show up for wives these days?
So before I got married, my mom asked me how I knew Elizabeth, my wife, was the one. And I told her it was because I loved doing nothing with her. And the realization there is that most of life is just sitting around doing nothing. It's sitting on the couch, hanging out, watching shows, really doing nothing. But you create this impression that life is all about these crazy honeymoon moments. It's about the fancy date nights out, the Instagram moments. It's the impression that social media creates for what your life looks like. But the reality is that life is those moments of nothing. So when you find someone that you just love doing nothing with, that is your person. Yeah. That is the person that you want to go and build a life with. And I was very lucky in the fact that I met my wife when she was 14. I was 15 years old when we met.
Good clarification, also given Twitter these days.
Yeah.
Same age range.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes, I was 15. She was 14. And we met in a high school computer lab.
I didn't know that.
The strength that gets built in you when you have grown across different seasons of life, she has been very consistent throughout all of those seasons, actually, as a human. I have not. I was not a person that I am proud of for many of those years. But the fact that she has seen me through all of that,
Were you dating that whole time?
We were dating that whole time.
Wait, since you guys were 14 and 15?
Yeah. She was, I guess, when we started dating, she was technically 15. I was 16.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You know,
we did
Chris
long
and I
distance
met
for 7 years. I did
when
know
we
that.
were 11 and 12.
I did know
But
that.
we had a break. Fascinating.
Yeah. We, she has seen me through some dark times in my life. And a lot of times when I was focusing on all the wrong things, and she has really been like a ballast for my ship. And I just think today, as I think about our relationship, especially as I think about my son, one of the highest callings as a father to me, like one of the things I hope for, is I want to know that if I drop dead tomorrow, that my son is going to have an amazing life. And I feel that so strongly, and it is the most amazing feeling in the world to just know that, like, my son would have an incredible life because his mom loves him more than anything in the entire world. And I want my son to know that. And so when I think about that, I always think, like, you can't teach your kids anything. You have to embody the things you want them to learn. Yeah. So if I want my son to treat my wife like a queen, I better damn well treat my wife like a queen. If I want my son to embrace the idea of delayed gratification, he better see me doing hard things for the benefit of something in the future. Every single thing that you want your kids, that you want the people around you to learn, you have to embody those things. And so our relationship, I just think that all of this, like every single thing that I am doing, that I'm working on, it is us that we are doing it. She might not be on the cover of the book, but you go look at the dedication, it's on the first page, she's in there. And none of this would be possible without her and without my son and the clarifying force that he has been in my life.
I love that. Yeah. And also I think, today, young people, I think that, like, there's like a loss of hope or something, they think that men like you don't exist. They think that women, maybe like your wife, don't exist. And they think that because they've had a lot of shallow interactions, that is the only thing that exists in marriage. And maybe because so many marriages end poorly, that's all that exists. So I think it's really beautiful to share that, because I find the same thing with my husband. Don't get me wrong. We definitely have fights. We have our moments 100%. But I truly believe that a happy marriage is better and more important than a big bank account. And I think your book is a really good representation of it. Doesn't have to be and or. It doesn't have to be or, it can be and. But man, if you had to choose one, you probably choose the relationship.
Yeah. And I personally think that having an incredible marriage is the biggest cheat code for making a lot of money in life.
Yeah.
There is something incredible about feeling like you have a house full of love behind you as you pursue your ambitions and as you try to go and build something to make money. And look, I have no desire to be a rich guy by myself. The Forbes top 10 richest people in the world have 13 divorces among them, last time I checked. I have zero desire to be really rich, but have broken relationships with my children. Who knows how many there are out there like that. And so the whole point is we want to build this full, comprehensively wealthy life. We want to make a lot of money, no doubt. I think it's great. You can afford incredible experiences with people. You can build incredible things. But you have to remember why you are doing that. Yeah. It's not for the sake of the money. It's for the things that you're going to be able to create on the back of it. And that's really what this book is about. It's about defining what matters to you and then going and taking action to build your life around those things.
So good. I want to end with two questions, but I love this quote from your grandfather. You're very close to your family, I am too, that said, "The worst decisions in life are made when you allow your head to talk you into something when your gut already said no." Is that something that you live by today?
I try to. I don't always. And a lot of the things I write, post, talk about, videos are sort of reminders to self at times, where I will post something on Twitter when I have experienced a time when I have not lived by it and am reminding myself. And I realize if I'm reminding myself, there's millions of people out there that need that same reminder as I do. My grandfather was an extraordinarily wise man. And I feel so much love for him because when my mom is Indian, my father is white from the Bronx, New York. And when my dad wanted to marry my mom, his father was not accepting of it and told him he had to choose between my mom and his family. And my dad walked out the door and never saw his family again. And to this day, I never met my dad's parents. He has 3 siblings I never met. I have first cousins out there somewhere that I never met. He truly rejected the common convention and walked his own path with everything in him. And I imagine it was one of the hardest decisions he's ever made, or maybe the easiest, because he knew that this amazing, now they've been married 42 years. They have a incredible, loving relationship. I cannot imagine my parents not together. But the thing that instilled this love in me for my grandfather was when my mom brought my dad to meet her family, they were initially not super excited about their daughter marrying an American. And my grandfather asked my dad, "Well, how do your parents feel about it?" And my dad said, "Well, interesting story there." And after that moment, my grandfather ended up taking my dad in as like another son. If someone was willing to leave their entire family to be with his daughter, I think he realized that that person was okay in his book. And I just saw that love and that legacy of love trickle through my family, and the way that my grandfather supported my dad, the way that my dad supported me throughout my whole life. And that has meant more than anything else in the world. And my grandfather's wisdom continues to run through me. I mean, I have a piece of paper on my desk that is one of his most important pieces of wisdom that says, "You'll achieve more by being consistently reliable than by being occasionally extraordinary." And I think about that every single day. Just show up and do the work. It's hard to bet against the person who just keeps showing up.
Do you think you can change your life in a year?
Absolutely. I think Bill Gates was the one who said most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. I kind of disagree. Sorry, Bill. I think most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in 1 year. You are 1 year of focus away from people calling you lucky, from people saying, "Oh, she just got lucky," or "he just got lucky." 1 year of focus, 1 year of asking the right questions, 1 year of clear intentions, 1 year of focused daily actions. You can change your entire life.
So good. Well, I hope everybody picks up this book. I don't say that very often, actually, as you know, because we're buddies. But I think it's really important, the 5 types of wealth, that we talk so much about money, but damn, I'm doing you guys a disservice if at the end of the day, you have a big bank account and that's all you got. And so I'm really glad you wrote the book. SahilBloom.com. Sahil Bloom on all the socials. Anywhere else you want to send people? And it comes out February 4th?
February 4th. Available everywhere. And pick it up at your local bookstore. Let's go support some local businesses.
That's right. Small business, baby. Although if you have to buy it on Amazon and still support Sahil, I'm okay with it too. But let's go with local first. Sahil, you're the man. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.